Vitya Diaries Chapter 13, Tough Love, N. Why, skipping practice again? Me, yeah. N. Why, they all sound like assholes anyway. N. Why, seriously? You don't need them. I skipped practice for the rest of the week, and the next one. Instead spending my time finding stupid projects to do, like cutting pieces of paper into tiny strips, watering my aunt's garden even though she said I was bad at it, and texting Nico. He told me about the books he was reading, about getting ready for their cruise and how he wasn't going to have internet or cell access. Complained about his family. It sounded like such a normal teenage life. Not like me, getting barked at whenever I tried to help with the dishes or other chores. I was even using the wrong paper for my projects, apparently, which my aunt only told me after I'd gone through an entire ream. I either wasn't doing enough or I was doing too much. Get out of the house, she'd say. Go find something to do. I didn't want to do anything, but not doing anything made me restless. I followed her around when I thought I could get away with it, went with her to the store, asked her questions about whatever I could think of growing up, what her hobbies were, what she liked about being home, what books she read, her favorite music, and finally she snapped at me and told me to leave her alone. My aunt liked having her quiet time, I guess. I tried my uncle, but he was even worse. Vitya, just go outside, or something. Just like my papa had been. At least, what I could remember of him. Busy, busy, busy. Too busy for me. Me, I don't know if I can take much more of this. N. Why, parents are the worst. Me, they're not even my parents. Nico. N. Why, oh right. N. Why, still the worst. Me, what am I going to do? N. Why, fight back. N. Why, that's what I always do. Vitya, you're overwatering them again. How many times do I have to tell you not to mess with my garden? I'm just trying to help. You'll help more if you just. She took a deep breath to calm herself. Look, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but you are too old to be acting like this. Like what? Her hose-free hand sought the bridge of her nose to pinch the pressure point and sighed. Don't you have skating practice? No. What are we paying your coach for, then? I dropped my gaze to the grass between us. My flip-flops, her flats. What about ballet? I thought you were going to take some workshops this summer. That had been the plan. But getting there. Vitya. Groaning, my aunt dragged the hose to the side of the house and turned off the faucet. What are we going to do with you? I had no answers for her. It was during dinner that they told me about the phone call. The bowl of akrishka in front of me was as unappealing as my relative's conversation had been, all about the drama at the office, the neighbors that I didn't know, and something about bringing the car into the shop. Nothing that applied to me. And then, oh, yes, Vitya, your coach called. The soup was suddenly had all my attention. He said that you haven't been to practice in a week and a half. I poured at a beat with my spoon. Huh. My uncle drummed his fingers on the edge of the table. If he was prodding for more, he wasn't doing a very good job. After a few seconds more, he continued. That's 4 lessons you've wasted. They still had to pay coach even if I didn't go. So long as there was a contract, we were on the hook for that. They were on the hook for it. I bit my lip, but still said nothing. I didn't have a lot of money left from the competitions, I really didn't. But maybe you can't just ignore your obligations because you're scared, Vitya. He thumped the table once with his fist, but it did little more than make the soup dance in our bowls. Look, if you're worried about bullies, I can teach you how to be a man. A haircut, some better clothes, less. I don't know, dear. My aunt broke in, reaching across the table to put her hand on his arm. It shut him up right away. Then she turned to me. We don't want to squash your creative spirit, Vitya. I know that's very important to you, but here's a point. You do come off a little. I leaned back in my seat and pushed the bowl away from me, as far as my fingertips could manage. What? I asked. What do I come off as? What should I be less of? Neither one of them said anything other than hesitant hums and ahs, looking to each other for answers. I knew what they meant, but I wanted them to say it to my face. When they didn't, I excused myself from the table without a word and went to my room, shutting the door with a distinct lack of gentility. The next day, the door to the library was open and the elliptical was free to use. I worked out until the pain in my arm made me nauseous, and only barely managed to make it to the bathroom in time to throw up. I didn't feel good and I didn't look good, either. but my body appreciated the exercise. It was so much better than doing nothing. I repeated the process as often as I could, over and over until my aunt caught on. She pounded on the bathroom door. "Vitya, what are you doing?" I had no answers for her, just feverish sweat and the cool tiles of the floor. "Vitya, are you sick?" was I. "Vitya, open the door." I pulled my arms over my face, body stretched out in front of the sink, and cried. Unicorns have more enemies than they do natural predators. Left in the wild, they're able to fight or outrun most anything that would want to eat them. Their horn was a deadly weapon to be used when cornered, able to stab and slash with a whip of their head. Their cloven hooves sharp and agile, driven by powerful shoulders and haunches, their jaws strong enough to crush anything that dared to get close to their mouth. Unicorns were fast at running and excellent jumpers, able to leap over debris and other obstacles in their path. And they were quiet, which was good for hiding and slipping through the woods undetected. A unicorn's greatest threat were those who hunted them for no other reason but to hurt them. In the end, it's really the broken heart that does them in. Vitya, we wanted to talk to you about something. Azerbaijan salad was the meal of the day, and usually a good way to butter me up. I should have known my aunt would use salad to manipulate me. I picked out a chunk of tomato and watched the olive oil slide off the flesh and back into my bowl. Water and oil weren't compatible. My gaze shifted to the adults at the table, nodding once when they came into focus. "Yes, it's really important, so we want your input." How'd I not notice that my aunt was sitting on the edge of her seat before? Had she been like that the whole meal? It wasn't like her to be able to keep secrets, though. Really, they probably could have had an entire discussion while I was zoning out and I wouldn't have noticed. I blinked at her, then at my uncle, and felt a tight frown coming on. They were smiling a lot. "What is it?" I asked. That only made them perk up more. "Vitya," my aunt began, "we're thinking about getting a dog." More blinking. "A dog?" I asked, lips pinching together. I didn't know if I was ecstatic or angry or shocked or everything at once. The emotions that coursed through me were like an electric shock, a jolt that had the sleepy fog arrested. "Really?" My aunt nodded. Enthusiasm brimming and contagious. "It would be fun. And all boys should have a dog growing up, shouldn't they?" She looked to my uncle, who nodded in his sage way, stroking his beard between thumb and forefinger. "I had one when I was about your age. A collie." Oh, the energy wasn't letting up. My heart pounded, and instantly I could picture myself running a puppy around the yard, wrestling, cuddling, chasing, tumbling, fluffy cuteness. Yeah, that would be fun. "But I thought you guys didn't want a dog in the house." "Well, you'd have to help with taking care of it," said my uncle, ever the practical one. "Bathe it, feed it, walk it, clean up after it," I added, fingers finding their way to the edge of the table to hold on. I might have floated away otherwise. "What kind of dog?" "We were thinking a poodle." My aunt took my uncle's hand under the table, positively beaming. "They're sporty, have a lot of energy, and are cute just like you." Cute. She'd called me cute. She hadn't called me cute since I was little. It made me blush. I'd never considered a poodle before. "But maybe," she continued, leaning forward. "Besides, it would fit right in at the academy. Don't you think?" I laughed. "Auntie, dogs aren't allowed at Vaganova." They were crazy. I loved it. "Ah, but Coach Feltzman says that they'll make an exception for a service animal." The good mood shut down like a light switch and my body froze. Any positive energy I had quickly draining away to leave cold dread behind. I cleared my throat with a single cough. I took my glass of water and held it to my mouth, masking my expression. "Coach Feltzman says, huh?" I asked, voice flat. My uncle put his arm around her, almost like he was trying to protect her from her little sleep-up. "He thought that it would be a good for you, Vitya." My grip tightened on the table, but for entirely different reasons. Coach had been talking to them without talking to me about a service dog. Only broken people had service animals. I wasn't broken. Did they think I was? "Vitya, it'd be good for you to have protection after what happened, and a psychiatric service dog can." "What?" I screamed, pulling my hands into fists. "Forget about the table." "Why? Do you think I'm depressed for some reason? Is it because my parents died? Because I'm an orphan and fractured and obviously a basket case?" "Vitty, I know, my life is one dramatic story after another. But do you really think a stupid dog is going to fix that? Or the fact that my damn skating coach is a better parent than my blood relatives?" "Vitya." I got up, salad bowl tipping over. No. You know what? Maybe it'd be good for me to get beat up. Maybe it'd teach me to be tough, like you want. And if I got killed, you wouldn't have to worry about me anymore. Everyone wins. My aunt burst into tears and my uncle stood, putting one hand on her shoulder. Don't you ever say that. I just laughed, the anger and guilt boiling over in a fresh wave of manic tears. There was nothing I could say, it was over. I turned heel and bolted for the stairs. I didn't stop, taking the steps two at a time, arms out to catch myself and aid in the scrambling climb, feet slipping on carpet. They yelled after me and I heard the thumps of the chase on my heels, but I slammed my bedroom door hard enough to cut it off. The finality of my violence in the face of salad betrayal would squash the howling. It had to. But just when I'd caught my breath, there was a knock at my door, gentle, insistent. Vitya, let's talk about this, please. Vitya. They weren't supposed to come after me. No one ever came after me. Coach didn't. Why would they? I dragged my desk chair over and hooked it under the knob. Vitya, we love you. We just want to help. Go away. My voice cracked, pitched and squeaky. Just go away. They tried the handle but I'd locked it. Good. I backed away from the door and then fled to my bed and under my covers, fingers sinking into Albert's mane as I pulled him close to my chest and buried my face against the mattress. We would be safe here. They wouldn't be able to reach the unicorn and the princess. Just as long as I shut everything else out. 3 days later, the knock at my door was different. Not the quiet trapping of my aunt, or the slow knuckle tap of my uncle, but a low and steady thunk, thunk, thunk. Vitya? I sat up, hair a mop of silver mess in my face. Coach. Vitya, get dressed and bring your skates. I'd been wearing pajamas ever since the betrayal, and had only snuck out of my room at night or when my uncle was at work. So far, I hadn't been seen. My aunt left food by the door. All I'd done was sleep and text Nico. Even then, my replies were sparse. I didn't want him to think I was an overly emotional teenage brat or anything. Busy is what I told him I was. He never asked what I was busy with. Now Coach was at my door. I scratched my head and combed my hair back into some kind of reasonable mess, reaching for my nightstand for a hair tie. I expect you in 5 minutes. I couldn't see through the chair to under the door, but I didn't hear him walk away. Was he really going to wait out there? I pulled my hair up, tying it back, then scooted over to peek out through the slit in the curtains out to the yard. The day was bright and sunny, the grass green, a few puffy clouds in the sky. I usually loved days like this. Bunny naps in the grass to soak up the sunshine were some of my favorite moments of summer. But today, I let the curtain fall back into place and fell back against the mattress with a sigh. Would Coach break down the door if I didn't come out? I doubted it. For all that he was a big, scary bear, he wasn't the violent type. I waited, watching the door, and he knocked again. Vitya, we don't have time for this. Get dressed. 3 minutes left. I rolled over onto my back. Vitya. Coach's voice was turning stern. I'm here to pick you up. Listen to your coach. The guilt tugged at me, so I dragged my pillow on top of my face to try to drown him out. I'm not leaving until you come out. Then my aunt joined him, unable to keep her whisper to an actual secretive tone. See? Like I told you. He won't leave his room. We don't know what to do, Coach Feltzman. Leave it to me, he said. Vitya, you have 2 minutes. What if he's... My aunt gasped, and it made me roll my eyes. What? Did she think I was dead? He's just being stubborn, Coach replied, sounding as incredulous as I felt. Or nearly. Anyway, Vitya, don't make this a waste of my time. I winced. I didn't want to do that. Inconveniencing Coach was. I shook my head. I don't want to go. Oh. He's alive, thank God. My aunt, Mrs. even more dramatic than her nephew. Coach ignored her. You don't always want to do warm-ups, either, but you must. Groaning, I sat up again. No I don't. You don't have to do warm-ups. I could just hear the frown through his voice. No, I don't have to go with you. But I've come all this way, Vitya, especially to pick you up. Now I frowned. So? I didn't ask you to. My appointment book says otherwise. Oh, right. I was scheduled for a practice. I rubbed my neck, taking my dark and messy room into consideration. The rink was a place I'd gone to for comfort a million times over the years. Way more than this bedroom. You have Yogi and Sasha to coach. You don't need me. They had practice this morning. This appointment is just for you. I turned to the door again. Private practice with coach. It sounded too good to be true. Enough to be tempting. But, less than 1 minute. Vitya, hurry. I hesitated a few seconds longer. But it was useless. I couldn't resist. I got out of bed and hurried to my dresser, digging through the drawers for fresh clothes that I could wear for working out. I'd need a lot of warm-ups to do any jumps. But that didn't matter. A practice with coach all to myself. I'd do whatever he asked. I'd be the best student. 10 seconds. I'm coming, jeez. I yelled, hopping on one foot to get my pants on. Just wait a minute. 5, 4, coach. I whined, quickly rolling on deodorant and pulling on a t-shirt. Stop. I can't believe it. My aunt said from the hallway, voice just a wisp. When I opened the door, both coach and my aunt were standing against the opposite wall. Coach greeted me with a small, but amused smile, and my aunt looked like she was going to cry or yell or both. I wasn't sure. She stayed quiet as I stomped out of the room, still putting on my socks. My shoes are downstairs, I muttered as I walked right past them. Fine, said coach, following after me. Before I knew it, I was in coach's car, hugging my skates in my lap. Coach was triumphant, and while I was kind of sort of excited to go skating, I wasn't happy about being manipulated into it. Coach was like that, though. He always knew just what to say to get me to do what he wanted. That jerk. We drove in silence. I watched the scenery roll by. Riding with coach was a lot better than having my uncle take me. Although, the route coach was taking to the rink wasn't the usual one. In fact, it was the wrong direction entirely. Coach, where are we going? He didn't answer, even as I turned a glare on him. All sorts of emotions cropped up, swirling around and clawing for my attention. Suspicion, anger, fear, all with a heaping scoop of nausea. Coach, are you kidnapping me? No, Vitya. Then where are we going? I cried. This isn't how we get to the rink. He stayed calm, gaze fixed on the road. You'll see. I'd been tricked. Coach had tricked me. What was he doing? Where was he taking me? Why hadn't he told me what he was doing? Take me back home. We're almost there. Where was there? I sucked in a breath and held it, idle fingers playing with the laces of my skate as fear took a larger hold. The possibilities were endless. Another doctor, a different coach. What if he wanted to get rid of me? What if this was a conspiracy with my aunt and uncle to foist me off onto someone else? The orphanage. Coach turned off of the road and into the parking lot of a standalone building with a sign that had a big dog as part of the logo. An animal shelter. Complete and utter triple betrayal. Why are we here? I wasn't holding back anymore. I yelled. I told them I didn't want one, coach. He pulled the car into a parking spot, turned off the ignition, and got out of the car. Still calm. I stared in horror as he walked around the front of the car and to my door. I'm not going in there, coach. I don't know what you told them, or what they told you, but I don't need a dumb dog. Coach didn't reply, just opened my door for me. He was serious. He was going to force me to get a dog. A service animal, a psychiatric support whatever. He really, truly thought I was broken. My eyes burned. I didn't want to cry in front of him. I really didn't. Not again. Coach, I swear I'm fine. I don't need. I gasped, struggling for the words and way to convince him. Crying wasn't going to do that, but I couldn't help it. Did he want an apology? I could do that. I'm okay. Okay? I'm sorry I didn't go to practice. I'll come back, and I won't yell at my aunt anymore. He didn't reply, only held the door and waited. Stop standing there. Why wasn't he listening to me? I leaned out of the car and grabbed the door handle, but it didn't budge. With coach's steady hands holding on, I yanked again. Let's go to the rink. Duh? You wanted me to skate? I'll skate. I promise I'll skate. Please, coach. Please. Again. He didn't respond. Coach was a pillar of stubborn patience, strong enough to break my heart. I choked, sputtering. Coach. I tried again, pleading now, tears hot and fresh on my burning cheeks. Why are you doing this to me? He sighed and moved between me and the door, stooping to put his hand on my shoulder. Vitya, I'm sorry, but you need help. Out of all the options, this seemed to be the answer. Do you want to go to therapy? Everything in me went cold and still. Tight. It hurt. Those words from coach. The implication. I couldn't breathe. I didn't want this, any of this. A therapist would ask prying questions, make assumptions, treat me like those guys that attacked me. I'd heard what therapists did. what therapy was like. I shook my head, and my answer came out as a tiny squeak. No. Do you want medication? Medical records left a paper trail. People talked. Media found out. Medication was bad. It did things to you. It meant that there was something very wrong with you. I wasn't broken. No. Then we're trying a dog. It was a statement, not a suggestion. My gaze fell to the floor of the car, over my skates, under my sneakers. A dog for protection and emotional support. Everyone would know. Would it even help? It didn't matter. There would be no arguments with Coach. He squeezed my shoulder and I unbuckled my seatbelt, leaving my skates behind as I climbed out of the car to accept my fate. The shelter smelled too much like the doctor's office. Dogs and doctors. It was too clean for what it was, and everyone was more than happy to help. I didn't trust any of it. The posters on the wall were obviously just stock photos of smiling animals. It had nothing to do with the shelter itself. As usual, Coach did all the talking for me, which was good because I was trying not to cry anymore. Strangers wouldn't understand a 15-year-old boy crying when he was about to get some random dog pushed on him. A lady, who I guess Coach had made an appointment with, took us into her office to go over paperwork and instructions. I couldn't pay attention to anything she said, though. Her soothing voice was drowned out in everything going on in my head. Coach passed over a written prescription from the team doctor. Documents were signed, and soon the lady was walking us past rows of kennels so I could meet my perfect match. As if she knew anything about me, the dogs that we passed spun circles and barked, tails wagging. They all wanted love. I just wanted to go home. We came to another lobby at the end of the cages, and while we waited for the lady to come back with my potential dog, Coach rubbed my shoulder. It didn't stop me from muttering, "I hate this." Coach didn't reply. The lady came back with a curly brown dog trotting at the end of a leash. It was a poodle, but not like the ones I was used to seeing. It almost looked more like a teddy bear than a dog. But the floppy ears and paws, along with the wagging tail and lolling tongue gave it away. It was really cute. Painfully cute. The lady stopped the dog by tugging on the leash, then smiled at me. "This is Mokuchin. He's 6 months old, already fixed, and has all of his shots. We've been working on basic commands, but he still needs a lot of training." She leaned down to pat the dog's curly fur. "Poodles are athletic dogs, so you'll have your hands full keeping him exercised, young man." Was adding a lot more stress and obligations good for someone who was apparently depressed or whatever. The woman clicked her tongue. "Mokuchin, sit." Mokuchin looked up at her then sat, back end sliding on the tile. The lady patted his head again and he wagged his tail hard enough that it had his whole body wriggling. "Come say hello, Vitya. It's okay, he's really friendly." The floppy dog looked up at me, panting mouth almost like a smile. He was happy. Too happy. I didn't belong with happy. Coach set his hand on my back and gave me a nudge. "Go on, Vitya." Frowning, I went up to the dog and crouched to be at his level. How were you supposed to address a dog? Would he even understand? Hi, Mokuchin." The young poodle cocked his head to one side and sniffed, mouth closing. I looked up at the lady, helpless. "He'll shake your hand if you want, Vitya." I put out my hand, palm up, even though the dog could definitely bite me if he wanted to. "It's nice to meet you, I guess." I tried to smile and it didn't work. I felt so stupid. What was I doing? Mokuchin looked down at my hand, ears flopping forward, and then lifted a paw to pat my palm. Then he looked up at me waiting for me to confirm that he'd done what I wanted. His paw pads were warm in my hand and he didn't move when I closed my fingers around his little wrist. Instead, he wagged his tail harder. He. I struggled with the words, covering my mouth with my braced arm as if that would stop the onslaught of emotion coming out in a huge, ugly sob. It was like the pup had wrapped my heart in a big, fuzzy blanket, and I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. I dropped to my knees. He shook my hand, then the dog was licking my face, lapping up the tears while making soft little huffing sounds. Comforting me. This dog already loved me and he didn't even know me. I cried harder and wrapped my arms around his neck. He kept licking me, all over my stupid face because I couldn't stop crying, and he loved me. "Oh Vitya." Coach sighed, but there was no disguising the relief in his voice. "He's so beautiful," I sobbed. And he was. Mokuchin was the most beautiful, perfect thing in the world and he was mine and he loved me and I loved him more than anything else except for maybe Maybe coach. My fingers dug through his fleecy fur and Mokuchin just wiggled in my arms, tail going crazy. There, see, coach said. You'll be just fine. It looks like it was a good fit. The lady said. Seems like it. Shall we take him home, Vitya? Home? I was getting to take Mokuchin with me. Why yeah, I wailed. And it was embarrassing, but I didn't even care. I love him so much. I love you, Mokuchin. Stop licking my ear, that's so weird. Oh my god. He didn't stop, not until I was laughing so hard that I toppled over backwards, Mokuchin pouncing right after. It was so cute, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd smiled so much.